Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Welcome, welcome. Just letting a few more people into the space. Happy Monday.
Monday.
Okay, beautiful. If you are able to join with your camera on, that is really lovely. I really appreciate that, and it will help us to get to know each other as well. And if not, if you're busy doing other things and what have you, then that's totally fine too. I completely understand. Welcome to our October cohort of Bhakti Business, Shakti Creative. It's lovely to see your faces. Some of you I've met before, some of you I've known for a long time, and some of you are new to this community. So a big welcome to all of you. So today's session is largely an orientation. We're going to get to know each other a little bit, and I'm also going to kind of map out what the pathway of the training is going to look like, what our time together is going to look like, and just orient you and kind of get you in the space. And there's going to be a few little pieces of homework for today to get you started, but there will be more coming. So it's a kind of gentle start. Now, you are all at different stages and phases in your business. Some of you are right at the beginning. Some of you literally don't have a website, don't have an Instagram, don't have a business name. There's at least, I think, 3 of you in that place. And some of you have quite well-established businesses that have been running for a while, and you're well on your way, and some of you are somewhere in between. So with that said, what I really want you to understand is a lot of the things I'm going to be sharing over the next few weeks are they apply regardless of the stage you're at in business. Some things are specific to where you're at, and we will definitely speak to that. But things like, for example, time management, avoiding procrastination, decision making, all of these things are relevant whether you're 10 days into business or 10 years into business. So a lot of the principles apply across the board. I want to just start off by sharing with you a little bit about myself. And like I said, some of you know me pretty well, so forgive me for, if you already know all of this, but I think it's useful for those who don't. So I'm Katie Rose, obviously. I have always worked in the yoga, Ayurveda, wellness space. I left school at 16, forfeiting a place at university to work in a yoga studio. In fact, I was just telling my son about this morning, because my son, my 14-year-old, is obsessed with fishing. He's absolutely fishing mad, which doesn't really align with my vegetarian, vegan, ahimsa sensibilities. But anyway, it is what it is. And he's a very good boy. He's a beautiful boy. And he has been having the opportunity recently through a friend of his father's to go and be on some really big fishing charter boats, and first of all, just as a hobby, but now this weekend he got hired to support other young boys who were catching their first fish. And he said to me, "Oh, it was really amazing, Mum, because I realized how much I know. By teaching other kids, I realized, I've actually got quite a lot of skill and I know what I'm doing here." And, he has this whole vision that he wants to start working on boats and working in that industry. And I said to him, you're doing exactly what I did in my career pathway, which is just being in the room, being in the environment with people that do the thing that you love. And I literally started lighting candles and changing toilet paper rolls at Try Yoga in London, which was at the time was the biggest yoga studio in London. The reason I chose it was because it was big and fancy and well known, and I was like, I want to work there. And I applied for a job in reception. I didn't get it because I had no experience and I was too young. So I said, okay, I'll work for free. Can I just be a volunteer? And they literally had me cleaning the bathrooms, lighting the candles, what have you. And I got classes in exchange for that. And then very quickly, a reception job. And within a very short period of time, I got a job. I was managing the place. I was the manager. So, it's that pathway. And it's the reason I'm telling you this is partly so you can get to know me a little bit more, but also there's something about the entrepreneurial spirit, and I see it in my son too. There's something about being in business, being an entrepreneur, that you see the world a little bit differently. And part of that is going into situations and environments. And this could be as simple as posting something on Instagram. Like, it doesn't have to be, you know, a life-changing, bold move, but putting yourself out there in a way that is a little bit different to how other people do and how other people think. And it's often about seeing the opportunity when the opportunity isn't necessarily presented in the most obvious way. Right? It's like literally like, I just want to be in the space. I'll give you another more recent example, which is a year or so ago. So I have a couple of business coaches that I work with, because I think it's always really important when you're doing something that you're also being mentored in that thing. That in yoga, understanding that's lineage, right? If you're a teacher, you need a teacher. It's a very important part of what we do as yogis and who we are. So I have a couple of business coaches that I work with. One is a woman called Kelly Deals. Another is a woman called Victoria Washington. And, you know, I'll be sharing with you about them over the coming weeks, I'm sure, because I've learned so much from them. But at some point I realized I wanted to really learn from Victoria, because she's a brilliant strategist and she understands particularly the world of online marketing, which is a lot of what I do. And I saw that her business model was very similar to mine. So I actually signed up to be an affiliate of her offers, and I started working in her affiliate program, meaning promoting the things that she does. And then as an affiliate, you get a cut. And this is a great way of doing online business when you have an audience. Not because I wanted to generate income being an affiliate. In fact, I didn't make that much money doing it at all, but because I wanted to see the inside of her business and how she runs and how she works and how she thinks, and just get in, you know? And you'll do the same with me. Like, as we're learning and growing together and with each other, you'll see how I do. You'll be like, oh, she sent that email out about that thing. And then she sent up another email. And oh my God, she sent so many emails. Like, that'll be something you'll notice about me. And I can almost guarantee there'll be plenty of women in this room who feel very resistant to sending lots of emails, and it feels like it's very salesy and very pushy. But I can also tell you that half of you would not be here literally if I didn't send so many emails. So you can think on that a little bit. And I'm sure if you're anything like me, you'll have a lot of resistance in the beginning, like I did. And then, you know, and there is a sweet spot. There is such a thing as too many emails. Anyway, Victoria sends, I mean, 10 times more emails than I do. And part of that is a little bit cultural. She's American, and in America, the marketing and sales, the way that they do marketing and sales is a lot more pushy than we do in Australia. So I do think there's a difference that is a relevant factor, which we will also discuss. But the point is, I learned so much by being in that space with her and just observing her. And what I've learned is that she's an incredibly ethical person and a very brilliant person. And I loved her all the more for working that closely with her. So it was a really positive experience. So yeah, back to the beginning of my career. So I managed Try Yoga for a number of years, which I loved. It was a wonderful, wonderful, big leap opportunity for me. I got to work with some of the best yoga teachers in the world. And then my partner at the time, who I'd been with for a long time, my sort of high school sweetheart, I guess you'd say, he was a doctor, and he got a job transfer to Westmead in Sydney. And you know, at that point, we already had a house together. We were thinking about, you know, spending the rest of our lives together. We'd been living together for a long time. And we decided to split because I wanted to stay in London. My job at Try Yoga was such a big opportunity for me, and he really wanted to pursue his career. So it was a big decision, and he moved to Australia and I stayed in London. I lasted about 3 months. He timed it really well because he moved at the beginning of winter in London and went to Australia in summer, and then was just like sending me all these emails and pictures every day of like how beautiful and amazing it was. And I was like, okay, I'm going to quit my job, and you know, I'll move to Australia. So I moved to Australia to be with him, and very quickly, because I literally had nothing else to do, like I didn't know anyone here. He was working long hours. I was twiddling my thumbs. I decided to open my own yoga studio, and it was the best thing that could ever happen to me. You know, it was one of those situations in life where you think the universe, God, source has given you a bad deal. I was like, I have this great job. Why do I have to choose between love and my career? But then actually moving to Australia was the best thing that could have happened for my career ever, because I stood on my own 2 feet and I opened my own studio. And by then I had a really amazing relationship with the man, Simon Lowe, who founded and ran Try Yoga. Like we were, I'd been his manager and personal assistant essentially for a few years. And he agreed to support me. And he flew out to Australia a few times and helped me get the studio set up, taught for me, trained me to run a studio, trained me to run a teacher training, came and taught in the teacher training. When I got married, which was not to the guy I came to Australia with. We split up about a year after I came out here. And then I met my husband, who is no longer my husband, but you don't want to hear the whole story of my love life because that'll take the whole session. But then I got married to my husband, who was my mechanic. I met him because he fixed my car. And Simon flew out from England again to give me away. So he was really like a hugely instrumental figure in my life, and still is someone I'm very close to, and more than a mentor, a teacher, a friend, a father figure, just, yeah, very important person in my life. And that studio was Samadhi Yoga. And I ran that for 3 or 4 years as Samadhi. Some of you might even remember it was, we're going back to 2004 now. And then I transitioned Samadhi Yoga to become Jiva Mukti Yoga, because my teachers are Sharangan and David Life from Jiva Mukti, who Simon, my first teacher, introduced me to. And they have studios all over the world. And I essentially ran a franchise for them. So it wasn't under a franchising umbrella, but I was given permission to open Jiva Mukti Sydney, which I did, which was such a beautiful opportunity to be in lineage with my teachers and again learn from them and be in the space with them, both as business mentors and as spiritual teachers. And we built those businesses up. And at a certain point, I had 4 studios in Sydney. So we had Woolai Creek, Alexandria, Newtown, and Annandale. And that was a really busy time in my life. I had 2 very young children, running 4 yoga studios. It was a lot. And then I got pregnant with my 3rd child. And it was a little bit of a surprising pregnancy. My husband was much keener on it than I was. And I just had to make the decision that I can't continue running 4 yoga studios and have 3 young children. It was too much for me. I mean, I could have done it. Financially, we were in a position where I could have chosen to have a lot of childcare and continue to work. But actually, for me personally, and this is no judgment on anyone else, my decision was I want to be with my babies. I want to be around for my kids. So I sold the studios. I let them go. Jiva Mukti Sydney is still thriving. It's still a community. Doug, who I passed the Newtown studio on to, still runs it in Newtown, which is just up the road from where I live. So that was really beautiful, that the legacy of what I've created got to continue. It didn't kind of die. And I focused on full-time parenting for a few years. I was still always teaching and I was still always doing, I think when you have that entrepreneurial spirit, which I'm sure many of you can relate to, you always have a finger in some pies. Like there's always something going on that you're kind of building or interested in or creatively thinking about. But it was definitely a time of less work for me. And then I got pregnant with my 4th child, had another baby. So 4 boys, and everything was kind of ticking along beautifully. And I was doing bits of work, but not too much. And I really enjoy being a mum and I enjoy parenting. I feel very, very fortunate that I love being a mum and I love being at home with my kids, and I also love working. So I was able to have a really beautiful balance of those 2 things. And then my marriage really started to fall apart. And long story short, we got divorced. And when we got divorced, which was 6 years ago now, my financial situation changed radically overnight. My ex-husband and I are good friends now, and we co-parent really well, but we didn't have a happy divorce. It was really difficult. And one of the things that was hard about it was financial. And I came out of the divorce with a lot less money than probably I should have, and also needing to start earning money. So I found myself with 4 children, really needing to start generating income. And so at that point, I decided I was going to launch an online yoga business. And I didn't have a huge audience or following at that point. I'd spent quite a few years mostly mothering. So in some ways it was like starting from scratch, but also not completely, because I did have years of industry experience and I did have lots of contacts. I built that business up over the last 6 years, 5 years, seriously. The Bhakti Rose is the yoga and Ayurveda part of that business, and it has 2 main offerings. I do lots of little things, or 3 main offerings, really. Bhakti Club, which is my online membership, Ayurveda Goddess, which is an Ayurveda training, and Yoga of Birth, which is a training for pregnancy and prenatal. And then a year ago-ish, maybe a little bit more than a year ago, maybe a year and a half, I'm losing track, I'm getting old, I opened another branch of online business, which is this branch, which is Bhakti Business. And the reason I did that was because I grew Bhakti Rose to be quite financially successful. The first few years were a struggle. I always talk about them as being my lentil and rice years, where the kids and I ate lots of lentils and rice and didn't go out much, and I really didn't have much money. And you know what? I'll tell you this from a sort of spiritual perspective. I never had so little money that I was worried about, I had a home and I had enough for food and all of that stuff. So there's real poverty is something different. And I'm not speaking about that, but it was definitely a very lean time in my life in comparison to when I was married and we had plenty of money and we were very comfortable. And I can honestly say that there was something quite refreshing about the simplicity of going back to the grassroots of not having much money, which I had experienced in the early years of living and working in London in the yoga studios. And I see a lot of women staying in unhappy situations for financial reasons. And I'm really glad that I didn't stay in an unhappy situation for financial reasons, because I was able to stand on my own 2 feet and work my way through a really difficult financial time. And part of the reason I do this work now is to support women in having financial independence. And I hope that it isn't for the same reasons as me. I don't want you all to go and get divorced or, have times where you don't have much money. But I personally believe that it's really important for women to be financially independent. And that's a big part of my work and, why I'm here in service to you guys and supporting you. So the reason I started Bhakti Business was because I built Bhakti Rose, the yoga and Ayurveda business, up to be quite financially successful and to support me and my boys. Like now it's my sole source of income. I've since had a daughter, and me and my 5 kids, I support us. Like my income is the main income that supports our household. And I worked really hard to do that. And I realized that I learned so much along the way. And then people started asking me more and more about the business side of things. So people would be like, how did you figure out the online business? How did you, monetize? How did you work out what to charge and what offerings to do? And I was giving more and more informal or one-to-one advice of that kind. And then I realized, actually, I really want to create a program around this. I want to be able to kind of map out the strategy and the pathway of what I did and support others to do the same. And I think that I am uniquely positioned to support yoga teachers in particular, obviously because of years and years of industry experience. Like I'm 46 now, I started at 16, so it's a 30-year journey. But also because I've done lots of different types of businesses. So I've run retreats, I've run events and workshops, I've run retreats in Australia, I've run retreats overseas, I've run yoga studios, I've had big businesses that generate lots of income and have lots of staff and big rent and big overheads. And I've had tiny micro businesses that are just me and no staff and no overheads. And I really understand the full spectrum of possibility and of where you might be at. I've also run my own yoga classes that I've set up from scratch, and I've worked for other people running bigger organizations that, are more like gyms or large yoga studios. So I've got a lot of, I've got the ability through lived experience to really feel into a lot of different business models. And without sort of sounding arrogant or blowing my own trumpet, but what I really want to do is help you not have to go through the long, hard pathway I went through. Like when I think about the beginning of my business online, I was so clueless. There were so many things I just had no idea about what I was doing. And then, I spent hours and hours and hours up at night when my kids were sleeping, just sitting at my laptop, watching YouTube tutorials, figuring things out, building a bloody website, figuring out how to do Instagram marketing, figuring out how to write good email copy, the whole thing. And it's a lot. It's a huge learning curve. And so really what I've done in this training that you are now part of is I've literally distilled and consolidated all of that. And I'm just going to give it to you in the most efficient, most clear, most easily mapped out way that I can. And of course, there'll be some little differences depending on where you're at in your business. Everyone's in a slightly different place. But like I said before, many of the rules of thumb apply across the board. So let's talk about the structure of the program. You've got access to a course portal, which is the Bhakti Business Course Portal. And in that are 8 different sections or areas that relate to different parts of your business. Now, if you're at the very beginning and you have literally not started at all, I recommend that you work through that material module by module from 1 through to 8. So you want to complete the first part before you move to the second, before you move to the third, etc. If you're a little bit more established, some of the modules will be less relevant. So for example, if you've already got a website that you're happy with, you don't need to spend a lot of time thinking about how to build a website. But what I would say is it's still good to revisit that material because you might want to go to your existing website and refresh it, make some changes, optimize it, etc. So even if you think you know something, or you've got a certain area under control, I would still definitely recommend that you look at the material because, there's going to be things that you're going to see that you haven't seen, or you see them in a different way. As you're working through that material, which you're largely going to be doing in your own time, it's kind of self-led, and we'll talk more about where you'll find that time in a moment. We will also be having, particularly between now and Christmas, an intensive amount of our group sessions. Many of you are also working with Edwina, and some of you aren't, and either way, it doesn't matter, but we'll be having a lot of these group sessions and this time together, and also intensive communication in our WhatsApp chat back and forth. And so you'll get, what I really want you to feel is some strong momentum between now and Christmas, where you really feel like you're making progress and you're well on the way. So you start next year knowing what you're going to be doing and feeling like you've got your ducks in a row and you're making progress with things. So part of that is that I would love for you to, and this is your first homework task, to spend some time in the next few days mapping out where you will find the time to do this work. So there's a module in the first there's a exercise in the first module of the Bhakti Business Portal called sadhana pockets. So sadhana is a Sanskrit word. It means spiritual practice or conscious spiritual practice. And the pockets refer to pockets of time. So we're thinking about your whole life as sadhana. Your entire experience is sadhana. And what I'm inviting you to do is look at the pockets of responsibility that you have in your life. For me, it's parenting, it's running my business, it's friendship and staying connected to my social circle is really important for me. And then my spiritual practice. Those are things that I really prioritize in terms of allocating time. And I want you to get really specific. I mean, actually, it's good. It's a really good exercise to do for your whole life, but particularly for the purpose of this training, create some blocks of time that you will give to this training, but also to your business, because as you're working through the training in real time and in tangible, practical ways, you're working on your business. We're not doing theory and then you go and apply it. We're actually doing the thing in real time as we're working through the training. So for me, my big work time windows are very early in the morning. You'll notice quite often I'm active in the WhatsApp group early in the morning. So please silence or mute your phone if you don't, like, I definitely don't want to disturb you, but it's likely that early mornings will be a time that I'm good at communication. And then inside school hours. So my kids, my 4 boys are all at school and my daughter is at daycare 3 long mornings a week, and then I have her at home with me a couple of mornings, and she is the best child. She's 2.5 at independent play. She's like a miracle child. So if I give her like a little tea set or some Play-Doh or, you know, some building blocks or something, she will literally sit and play for long periods of time on her own, which is like a miracle to me because I get to get work done and do things, and she's quite happy and content. My boys were not like that. And I don't know if it's a difference between boys and girls, but she's so good at independent play. I think she enjoys having some time to herself without the boys around as well, when it's just me and her, even if I'm working, because it's so hectic when the boys are here. She's like, when she's on her own, she gets to just play with all her toys and no one's interrupting her or trying to take anything from her. So, you know, I have a pretty clear mapped out, my side and the pockets are pretty clear. And I found that by creating that in my life, it's really, really helped me to not only be productive and get stuff done, but also to avoid the feeling, and I know many of you will relate to this, of kind of low level guilt or energy drain of like, I should be working right now. So this is one of the troubles of being self-employed and being on this entrepreneurial path, is that there's so much to do, especially in the beginning when you're starting to build things up, that you can find that even when you're just relaxing or doing your own practice or reading a book or watching TV, there's this niggly feeling of, oh, I should be building my website, or I should be, you know, working on my Instagram or whatever. And that can be very depleting. It's actually quite energetically, it kind of drags us down a bit. And we start to think, oh, I'm procrastinating, it's too slow. So I want all of those narratives to be, I want you to avoid that kind of negative self-talk. And the best way to do it is to allocate your times and treat them like a job. So make them non-negotiable. And literally, I literally do this, block them in your calendar. I block work times in my calendar. And if friends call and say, because people think when you're at home and you don't have a job that you're always available, you know, have you got time for a coffee, or I don't know, can you do the dentist, or can you go and pick this thing up? It's a no. I don't book other things in my work time. And I have a young child or young children, so I have to be especially strict about that. But it's so easy for those blocks of time to be like, oh, I do actually need to go and see the dentist, or I need to drop my car off to be serviced, or I need to go and do some shopping, or whatever it is. You have to be strict. You have to have a clear boundary. And that's a real method for success. Just create those times and then commit to them. And the way, in my experience, the way that successful businesses of any size and any kind are built is slow and steady and incremental. You just keep chipping away at it. You know, it's like if you can do every day an hour and a half, 2 hours, more if you can, but just keep chipping away, you'll be surprised how quickly you really start to see progress and traction. And if you don't do that and you leave it all and it starts mounting up and mounting up, you'll start to feel overwhelmed. And that's when very often what happens is we end up doing nothing and the business just doesn't get started because it all feels too big. So we've got to break it down into little chunks, which is what this pathway and this training does. But you've still got to do the work. And I'm not going to lie to you. You know, a lot of business coaches, and I see it online all the time, make big promises like there's a special formula that I'm going to share and then you'll suddenly become a multimillionaire, or you know, there's so many hacks that you can follow and all of a sudden you'll have this great successful business. I mean, maybe it works sometimes like that for some people, but almost everyone I know who has a really successful business has worked really hard at it. Even the ones that seem like overnight successes usually work really hard first before they got perhaps a big break or something happened. But online courses don't build themselves. Yoga classes don't teach themselves. Yoga retreats don't fall out of the sky. Like, it's all work, right? So we have to get on with it. We have to do the work. And another piece of advice I would give is try to work as much as possible in your zone of genius. And if you can outsource things that are not your zone of genius, then do that. Now, in the beginning, if you don't have a big budget, which most of us don't, you won't be able to outsource lots of things because you won't have the money to do that. But you can think creatively. There might be ways that you can trade. For example, and women in this container have done this before. Maybe you're really good at writing, but you're really not good at tech. So perhaps you do a trade with someone in this group, even where you help them write some copy for their website or their social media, and they create the framework of a website for you, like you trade skill. Or you know, get together and you do some, especially those of you who live locally to each other, you do a photo shoot together, or you do a planning session together, or you actually start, and you can do this on Zoom as well, of course, you start co-creating and collaborating and supporting one another. And then outside of this little bubble, you'll know other people that can help you and support you in your business in different ways, sometimes through a swap or a trade or a low cost. Or a friend of mine just built a website for her business, and it's amazing, it's beautiful, and she got it done because which I thought was such a brilliant idea, she approached her local TAFE and asked if there is a course for people who are designing websites, and there was, of course, and she got one of the students in that course to actually design her website, and she paid for it, but it was very, very cheap compared to what you'd normally pay, because it was a student learning how to build websites, but the website's brilliant. So I thought that was such a great way of thinking outside of the box. Like, I've got this thing I need help with. How can I get help that doesn't necessarily have to cost me lots of money? And for some of you, you'll have a bit more budget than others. And for some of you, you know what? You won't have a budget and you'll just have to do it yourself. And that's part of the thing too, right? I mean, I spent hours and hours and hours learning how to build websites and do all the things in the back end of the system that I use, which is called Kajabi. And now I outsource quite a lot. I have an assistant and I have quite a few people who help me in my business, but I understand the work they're doing because I did it myself in the early days. And there's something really valuable about that too. So that's the Sadhana Pockets piece. That's the first little bit of homework. I want you to listen to that audio, look at the chart, and just spend some time mapping it out. The next thing I'd love for you to start to get clear on in the next few days, week or so, especially for those of you who are at the very beginning, is a name for your business and your focus. So it's what we might call the elevator pitch. And I've already invited you in our WhatsApp group and some of you I see have already done it, which is fantastic, to refine your elevator pitch. So your elevator pitch is a very short, like it's supposed to be something that could take place in the time it would take if you got into an elevator and you were talking to someone and they, said, oh, what do you do? And you had like a minute to explain before the elevator stops and you have to get out again what it is you do. So it can't be waffly, it can't be lots of words. I really liked one of the ones in the WhatsApp group. Let me just find it because it stood out to me today. Because here's another thing about your elevator pitch. You might think that what you do is quite similar to what a lot of other people are doing, right? Many of you will be feeling this, like, oh, I run women's circles, or I teach yoga classes, or I teach pregnancy yoga classes or whatever. And there's a million other yoga teachers doing that. And you're right, there are a million other people doing the things that you do. But you have your own unique particular flavor or your own unique personality and energy. And as much as possible, from as early on as possible, I really want you to start sitting in the center of that and communicating that as your business and as your offering. So people are getting to know who you are and why you do what you do. And in the beginning, that's going to feel, for most of you, a little bit uncomfortable. But over time, you'll get more used to it, more and more comfortable with it. And you'll become known for those things. Let me give you an example, and I'm going to pick on Bridget. Hi, Bridget. I hope you don't mind. But Bridget has done some training with me before in the business world, and we had a one-to-one session a while ago, and we were talking about what she does and what she's doing. And she's a yoga teacher, and she had some ideas about different courses and workshops and what have you. And then at some point I was like, what's your real passion? Like, who do you really want to teach? What do you really like when it really comes down to it? And she had what I thought was such a brilliant idea, that she really wants to teach yoga for people who are swimmers. So she's really, I don't know if you're a swimmer. I'm assuming you must be, because otherwise, yeah, right. So you're a swimmer and you're a yogi, and she understands about swimming and yoga and how the two can work together. And she wants to support people who swim with yoga, right? To me, this is brilliant, because it's super niche. And you might think, oh, that's very specific. Like, are there really going to be that many people that swim that want to do yoga? I can guarantee you, if I'm a swimmer and I'm looking to do yoga because I want to be more flexible, or I don't know, more adept in the water or whatever, the woman who's offering the classes specifically for swimmers, that's the class I want to sign up for. So it's like, really look at who you are and what lights you up and what's happening in your life, and speak about that. And one of the things I'm going to encourage you not to do again and again is speak in kind of cliches, or have languaging that is in your Instagram and in your website and in your marketing that sounds a bit vanilla, that sounds a bit like what everyone else is doing. I want to feel who you are through what you're doing. And before I can feel that, you need to know who you are. So this is what I want you to start feeling into in the next few days and weeks, and moving through what might feel a little bit uncomfortable, and really owning it, just sitting in the center of it. And I wanted to give you another example, which is from the WhatsApp group this morning. I think it was Leah. Let me just check. Yeah. So Leah says, I teach yoga and facilitate women's circles and trainings around Australia, focusing on women's wellness. Okay, that's very generic. It's fine. It tells us what she does and we need that. But then she says, in my husband's words, I teach people to rest, lol. Right? This honestly is a tagline for her Instagram. This is marketing gold. Let me break it down. First of all, she's telling us she's got a husband, which is like a little bit of something personal about her. It's nice, it's sweet. It enables us to just see her as a human rather than a generic yoga teacher. Then also we know that her husband's supportive, and that she's talking to her husband about her work, and that there's some sort of like a sweetness there. It's nice. It's a nice way to think of Leah as a complete human with in a relationship. And then I teach people to rest is actually brilliant marketing, because it's so clear and it's so desirable. Like, don't we all just want to rest more? Like, it just immediately, you just feel like, oh, nervous system, exhale. And also it's a little bit funny. And then she's got the lol at the end, which is just like, I get that we shouldn't really have to learn how to rest, but somehow we all do. We need to learn, right? So in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words. Oh, and then she says, I can't wait to connect with you all. In 10 words, she has told us something about herself, told us about what she does, shown us that she's got a gentle, light sense of humor, made us feel like we know her. Absolutely brilliant. So when you're writing these words, when you're writing your elevator pitch, when you're thinking about what it is you want to offer and how you want to offer it, I want you to think about writing to someone as if you were writing for someone who you're close to, who you're friends with, who is really interested in what you're doing, and also who is excited to learn from you. And what we often do is we write for the people that we are nervous are going to see our stuff. Like, so for example, I mean, this doesn't happen to me anymore at all. And my mum doesn't look at my social media anymore because she's completely lost interest in that side of my life. But when I first started out, my mum used to follow me on Instagram. And every time I posted an Instagram post, I would, in the back of my mind, know that my mum was going to read my woo-woo words and think that they were silly and woo-woo. And then I'd be either feeling a little bit embarrassed and awkward, or editing for my mum. right? Which is so silly, but it's what we do because we're kind of like, oh, I don't want this person to see it, or that person, or I feel awkward, you know. So you've got a choice. You can either block those people and then they don't see it, and that's one option, or, which is what I've chosen to do, you just own who you are in that part of your life. I have a very close circle of friends, like my closest friends who I hang out with almost every weekend, who are one of them's senior in HR, one of them's a mortgage advisor, one of them runs a company that sells camping equipment, and the other one's a makeup artist, right? They're my closest friends. And in that friend group, I am the woo-woo hippie weirdo. They don't really understand how I make money. They know I'm moderately successful, but like it's what I do is very alien to them. And they love me and they support me, and they're, you know, really good friends, and they want the best for me. But when if or when, I'm sure they don't because they've all got better things to do, they were to read my Instagram posts or look at my website, I mean, they'd probably just be laughing at me because they would find it entertaining. And that's fine. I'm okay with that because we're multifaceted people, right? And it's okay for us to have different parts of ourselves that do different things. My 18-year-old at the moment, one of his favorite hilarious things to do is to greet me in the morning by saying, "Namaste, mum," very sarcastically. And I am unoffended by that. It's sweet and it's endearing, and he's just gently teasing me. And you know, and I also take my spiritual practice very seriously, and I believe in what I do, and I'm deeply immersed in these teachings. But it's okay for us to just take ourselves a little bit lightly, right? So when you start to get worried about what are people going to think, what if people see it, I'm not really sure, what if I change? Another thing people often worry about is, what if I change my mind and I start with this thing and then I want to do it differently? You get to change your mind. You get to say, I started out mostly teaching yoga asana, the physical practice of yoga, and now I hardly teach any yoga asana, and I teach mostly yoga philosophy. You get to make those changes. So don't worry that you're fixing yourself. In fact, the beauty of the world we live in these days, the online space and the technology, is that we can constantly reinvent ourselves. You're not stuck with the logo that you choose now for the next 10 years. You're not stuck with the website image. In fact, you can change it at the click of a mouse. So don't overthink. Don't feel like the words you write now, or the pictures you choose now, or the business name you pick now is going to be with you forever. Just start. Get started and sit with it now for where it is, and know that it will keep growing and evolving. And if you're really unsure, you can test things out in the WhatsApp group with us. You can kind of say, you know, I've got this wording, or I've got this image, or you can pop a link into a website page or an Instagram and say, what does everyone think about this? And we will all give you supportive and loving feedback. So that's the second piece of your homework, is introducing yourself in the WhatsApp group, but with some sort of elevator pitch about who you are and what you do, and see if you can weave into that very short amount of words something that gives us a flavor of who you are. And yeah, just play with that, you know, and you'll have your own kind of voice, and you'll start to get more familiar with who you are in terms of your business and how you represent yourself. Some people are very humorous, for example, and they include in their emails and in their Instagram lots of funny memes and lots of jokey kind of almost irreverent type of communication. Others are more serious. Like my marketing in Bhakti Rose definitely tends towards the more serious. Like, I don't use lots of funny memes and graphics. I mean, I appreciate them in other people, but the way that my branding is a little bit more formal, a little bit more professional, a little bit more serious. That's how I choose to market myself. I also choose not to share very much about my children on social media. I never show my kids' faces. I don't really share very many anecdotes about them and what they're doing and where they're at. I don't tell their names. I just choose to maintain their privacy. You might have kids, and kids might be a really big part of how you do your marketing and sharing about your children. For many people, it is. So there are no rules. You get to choose what you want to reveal of yourself, what you don't, how much personal information you want to share and how much you don't. And it's okay. Like whatever you decide is totally fine, and you can make a business work, but you need to decide and you need to start, and you need to not be crippled by procrastination, poor time management, or overthinking. And they're probably the three biggest problems that I see people have in business: procrastinating, not managing time well, and then overthinking and not doing the thing. Okay, I'm going to pause there for a second, and I'm just going to see. I'm not going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves now because of time and because I want you to do it in the WhatsApp group. But let's just see, does anyone have any questions or comments, anything you'd like to ask or share based on everything I've just said? Feel free to unmute yourself and just speak.
Okay, I'll start.
Thank you.
You make this all sound so easy, but I'm a pretty private person, and I find getting myself on paper or representing myself in the written word so difficult. So that's one thing I'm really looking forward to working on in this, is just figuring out how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I suppose that's...
I mean, look, when I first started my business and it was quite successful and it made pretty good money, I never made it about me. I was not at the center of it at all. If you look back through my Instagram, you go back far enough, you won't even see pictures of my face. I never recorded videos. Because when I ran the yoga studios, they were not about me. They were Jivamukti yoga, they were Samadhi yoga. Many, many hundreds of people that came to those studios would never have known who I was or met me. I wasn't like the big superstar, head of the studio. And I liked that because I am quite a private person too. Over time in my business, it's evolved that I've just become more relaxed about I just don't care anymore. Like I'm like, I've got nothing to hide. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, that's completely fine too. If you want to laugh at me, that's okay. I'm laughing at myself as well. Like I just don't care. And I think part of that too is because I've really reached a point in my life where everything in my life is very integrated. Like I used to feel like my life was much more compartmentalized. Like I've got the family and the husband and the kids and the yoga studios, and they're all sort of separate sections. Whereas now it all just feels like much more of one thing. So that's just my experience of that. So I guess there is quite a bit of me in my business and in my social media and in my marketing, but there's none of my kids. And a lot of people would say, oh, you should be talking more about parenting. You should be, like 5 children. It's quite a thing. Like I could be definitely leveraging that as a sort of marketing angle. And I don't at all, because I've absolutely decided to maintain their privacy. And it hasn't impacted my business negatively at all. So in theory, you could have a business that doesn't show you in any way. You don't have to be the big center of your business. You can talk about the yoga, you can talk about the offerings, you can talk about where you're off, let's say you're running a retreat, you could talk about the venue and the location and the beautiful space. It doesn't have to be about you as the teacher. But if you are feeling shy or a little bit private, or not ready to put yourself out there, I would say that it's worth looking at that a little bit and just asking yourself, what have I got to lose?
I think that it does. The more you do it, the more... I was like you too. When I first started, I would not ever put my face in a picture. I do now, and I'm much more used to that. And COVID helped, having to teach online, being in front of the camera, and yeah, you do get used to it.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that doing this intensively, that's going to force that a little bit. Force me to write about that and get some stuff on and make that journey quicker, I suppose.
Yes. And
So
one of the
thank
things I'd say about writing words for your website, words for your social media, words about your business, this is what I do, is just do a big brain dump first. Get everything out there that you want to say, including the things that you won't ever say in public because you want to keep them private. But get
you
it
mean
all,
for
don't
social media?
edit before you've even started.
Yeah.
Get it all out and then look at it and go, okay, this is actually really good. And I could share this and I could share that. And I'm not going to share this. And I'm not
Mm.
going to share that because actually I don't want to, you know. But get it all out there first. And you can also talk about things in a way, I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it, but you can talk about things without talking about them. For example, you can say things like, I've been through really dark times in my life and I have really struggled with low self-esteem. Then you're telling your audience something they can relate to, but you're not telling them the details of the dark time and the low self-esteem. You're not like, you know, sharing a whole narrative, which you also could do, but you could choose not to, but still tell them. Or you could say, I've been through a breakup in the last year and it was really tough, without going into all the details of why and how and who. And so you can share about yourself without sharing a lot about yourself,
Mm.
which still gives people a sense of who you are. The other thing we're really bad at, and I was talking a bit before about the difference between American marketing and Australian marketing. And as Australians, I mean, the British are the worst, but we're pretty bad too at blowing our own trumpets. So some of us feel a lot more comfortable saying, oh, I had a really bad week, or I've got really tight hips, or, I'm dealing with this problem or that problem, than saying, I'm really good at this and I can help you with this. Like, I know a lot about the psoas muscle, and I really want to share with you how to release your psoas muscle. I'm an expert on that. We're very bad at that. It's like I said, Americans tend to be a little bit different. They're very good at kind of putting themselves forth and blowing their own trumpet in terms of marketing. And I'm not saying you should ever come across as arrogant, but perhaps in your elevator pitch, one of the questions you might ask yourself is, what am I really good at? And you might have that statement in there. Like, one of the things I say about myself, which I know to be true, is I am really good at building communities. In fact, when I think about my career and everything I've done in my life, most of my success has come because I'm really good at building communities. I'm good at bringing people together and I love doing it. So, what are you really good at? What do you really love? And how does that relate to the kind of business that you want to create? Maybe you're really good at working one-to-one with people. Maybe actually you don't like the idea of large groups and big communities. And what really is in your heart is to work one-to-one with people. Then if that's the case, then own that. Don't tell yourself, oh, but I need to run group classes, or oh, but I should be doing it this way. There's no should, there's no need to. You get to pick. That's the beautiful thing about being in your own business. And if you've had a job for a long time, like if you've worked in a system, like for example, Louise, who was a midwife in a system for a long time, or Anne, who's worked in not-for-profits for a long time, you have a conditioning in you that is like, oh, what's the protocol? How is this meant to be done? And I'm here right now to tell you there is no protocol and there is no how it's meant to be done. You get to choose. It's so liberating and scary because the parameters are your choice. And then if it messes up, it's also on you. And that's the other thing, you know, as we jump into this journey of building business, and I don't want to end on this because I don't want to end on a negative note, but you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do things that don't work. I've put things on. Last Christmas, was it last Christmas or the year before? Gosh, I feel like I'm losing time. I think it was 2 years ago because we're nearly at Christmas again. I created this whole offer, this bundle offer, and I projected that I would make $4,000 from this offer that I had created. And I did a whole marketing campaign and sales around it, and it made about $300. It was an absolute flop. I don't even really know why. Last year, Edwina and I put together a retreat to go to India. It's $5,000 to come to India with us on retreat. We put it on sale. It's the first time we'd ever done it, and it sold out within a month people were just buying like the holiday, the retreat, like it was just selling like hotcakes. It was incredible. And within a very short period of time, we'd made a lot of money, pulled the whole retreat together, and it was just amazing. We were blown away and we had the best time. We ran the retreat. It was awesome. This year we put it on sale and we got no sales, and we didn't really change much. It was pretty similar. And we're running and we've got some sales and we're going, but it's a much smaller group this year, and it was a much harder slog for us to launch it and sell it. Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason. It's a bit unknown. And this is the hard thing about being self-employed and running your own business, is you'll have some big wins and you'll be like, oh my goodness, people really love this and want it, and I'm making money, and people are signing up and it feels so good. And then you'll have some flops. You'll have some times where you don't get the signups you wanted and people don't get it and you don't feel good about it and it just isn't quite right. And the difference between successful businesses and businesses that don't work out is that the ones that are successful just keep going. You just keep going. Like, that's really it. I know people who are brilliant at what they do, and they've never had a successful business because they've never actually backed themselves and kept going and put themselves out there and done what it takes to launch a business. And I know other people, and this isn't a very nice thing to say, but it's the truth, who aren't that great at what they do. They're pretty average, but they're really good at business and they make a lot of money. And one of the key things is just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Just keep showing up, just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Slow and steady wins the race. Mel's just asking if anyone takes photos during the group sessions and replays. She doesn't want her son's face on social media. I would actually extend that and say even further, let's not share pictures of each other on social media without permission, because I think that's a little bit not okay. This is a closed group, so thank you for flagging that, Mel. And I was going to say this before we ended today, that in these sessions I will be sharing things with you that I don't really want you to now go and post on social media that my Christmas sale 2 years ago was a flop. That's you're going to share things that are private. I'm going to share things that are private. It's a safe space and it would be beautiful for it to stay like that. However, it is lovely if we hero each other and share things from each other's social medias that are great. And I would love for you to post about being in the business container and share that on social media, and I will repost. And as we do that, as we all share and repost each other's stuff, we boost the algorithm. So I've asked you to share your Instagram handles in the WhatsApp group. I recommend you go and follow everybody. And then if we all start commenting on and sharing each other's stuff, not only will we get to know each other, which is lovely and supportive, but also the algorithm loves chat. So the more we're interacting, liking, posting, sharing, tagging, the more we're all getting lots of boosts as well. So let's do that. Amanda.
Hello, Katie. Hello, everyone. Namaste. I thank you for today. I feel like I'm sort of on top of the cliff about to jump off. Thank you for your sharing. I've run family businesses for a long time, for the past 20, 25 years. And yet my heart is pumping as I speak, because now it's about me and my offering. I think I've mentioned to you in the questions we had to answer, I was born in Peru, and I have been seeing pictures about Machu Picchu, but also my offerings would be about meditation and spiritual coaching and nutrition. I have to hone in on that. That's my challenge. But I also thank you, because I feel like I'm in this space, this safe space. And I don't know.
You can be the first to cry, Amanda. Don't worry. We're all going to cry at some point over the next few months. So you can just be the first one.
So thank you, because I think it's really confronting to, like, it's okay to open up and share from the heart.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for this space. Love you all.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. And And yeah, it is really confronting. And that's why being in a group like this is so incredibly powerful. Like I said to you before, I still have my own coaches and my own mentors, and I'm in my own groups because I need that too. We all need it. And some of the groups I'm in now are with people that are running businesses that are online, you know, women running online businesses very similar to us, who are turning over multi-millions of dollars a year, like very successful. And I feel like a tiny, tiny little minnow fish in that big ocean. And it's beautiful to see what's possible. And then, you know, in this space, I am here in the seat of the teacher in this moment with more experience than most of you in this area, at least. And you're going to grow into that. We're all growing, we're all expanding, we're all evolving. And it's so exciting to witness. And it is a brave path. And it's also, there are so many rewards. It's so rich with rewards. And I can honestly say for me now, where I'm at in my business, and I've really felt this in the last year, is like I really just get to choose to do the bits I love, to outsource the bits I don't love, and to keep creatively growing this business that is just so exciting for me. Like I just feel so blessed. And sometimes I have to remind myself I worked really hard to get here because it feels very easeful now. And I know that you guys can all get to that place too. And you know, you're going to have the support you need for that to happen. All right, my loves, I'm going to let you go and get on. Sardana Pockets, elevator pitches in the WhatsApp group. If anyone is not in the WhatsApp group, I think I've got 3 people I still don't see in there. So I need you to jump in. I also need you to please fill in the survey so I can get to know your business more deeply, and book your first one-to-one for those of you. There's a couple who haven't got one-to-ones, but those of you got one-to-ones, get those booked in as well. See you all very soon. And reach out if you need support. I'm here on WhatsApp if you need me.
Thank you, Katie. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye. Ciao.